Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In episode 260, we take our first look at the initial impact of free agency now that the legal tampering period has passed and we have one official day in the books. We're going to take a look at what might be best described as the new reality for the Detroit Lions. We're discussing who the Lions have lost, the returning players, and the new additions, plus some of why behind all of it. We're going to get to all of that and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is Theo Riddick, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, former Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He was also named Coach of the Week by Detroit Lions. He's a scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, it's happening, right? Change. It's taking place.
When I get to spend 5-6 hours a day watching film or watching NFL channels or shows about what's going on, I love it.
All right. Well, to join both of us to talk about what we love, what we might wonder about still, and what we're still waiting to see is James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record-Eagle. He is also the sports writer of the year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. James, I can't wait to get some of your takes on this stuff.
Oh, there's takes. I don't know how hot they are. I'm not much of a hot take guy, but I mean, there's takes.
And we appreciate that about you, the takes. Yeah, lukewarm sometimes.
I like it.
Well, folks, things, they are a-changing, right? We talked in a previous episode about the amount of roster turnover. 25%, 20%, that's pretty normal. But we cautioned you that we're going to see more guys who have made bigger contributions on this roster leaving than we have in previous seasons. More household names, at least around the state of Michigan, right? And that's what's exactly happening. Now, there's a variety of reasons this is happening. Player age, retirement, starting opportunities in other destinations, or players earning bigger contracts. And, well, the Lions having a salary cap that they've got to balance. So, Coach, get us started. I mean, a transition's taken place. What do you make of this? And a lot of Lions fans don't know how to feel because a lot of the players that they've seen the last 3 to 4 to 5 years as Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell came and started building this team up, some of those guys are now leaving.
Well, it's funny because I think about coaching at the high school level or at the college level, and every 3 to 4 years you were dealing with new guys anyways. So you kind of never got stale, and I think that's one of the things you look about. There's the old saying, play for those who came before you, set the standard for those to follow. Those guys, the average guys are the players that left at 29.7 years, that just left, the guys that we all know and love. They set the standards. They set it, and now the guys that are left have to pick it up and run with it. And not play for the other ones, play for the ones before you now, but also set those standards higher. And I think that's one of the things as a coaching staff you have to think about when you do that. Sometimes we're 9-8, then we make the playoffs, and we have 15-2, and then all of a sudden it kind of gets stale, and we go back to 9-8. And that's the time where you have to make changes you don't want to see and changes you don't want to believe in. Lou Holtz used to say the old create a crisis and coach off it. Well, we created a crisis by going 9-8 last year. And that crisis was, this guy's hurt, that guy's not hurt. Oh my God, we always seem to be hurt, or why do we have so many guys out on defense and we're losing guys, we got guys retiring. Well, then it's time to make some of those changes. We got that core group in the young bucks, and I think it's just it's sad to see. Hey, I don't want to see that go. I definitely didn't want to see Monty go, but it happened. So, and I think this is the time for the change, and this is basically to rise up to the occasion, get rid of that staleness, get rid of that. We're here now. We have to set the standard for those to follow.
Yeah, and some of those guys to follow are the guys who have been stepping up and have become leaders, right? Panay Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they have been growing their voice in the last 2 to 3 years easily. And so you see some of that succession, some of that passing the torch, if you will, to some of these younger guys who aren't as young anymore. They're not rookies. They are now NFL veterans who are on second contracts, who have ascended to the pinnacle of the game at this point because some of them are Pro Bowlers and all pros. And so, James, the roster churn is what it is. It is going to happen. Um, but, as Coach said, I think the average departing age of all the players that left was 29 or something like that. So what are your thoughts on some of this change?
Yeah, almost 30 average for the guys who left, and
Yeah.
that's kind of the bad number in the NFL nowadays. Is when you change that number, that's your age starts from a 2 to a 3.
Yeah.
That's just kind of considered to be one of those big dividing points. And so the Lions in free agency, one of the things they've done is they've gotten younger. They've had the guys that they've let go have been older. The guys that they've signed have been younger. Aside from Teddy Bridgewater, who's 33, that's a whole different thing, different ball of wax at quarterback. But aside from that, nobody is older than 27 that they've signed yet in this free agents class in the offseason. And that's Isaiah Pacheco, who's 27. He was a little bit of an older running back coming out of college. So Cade Mays is 26, Larry Borum is 26, Juice Scruggs is 26, and Seth McLaughlin, who I kind of include in this group that they got from the Bengals in the offseason, is only 24. So they've gotten a lot younger at a few positions. And I think that's something that's very important to Holmes is to keep that roster young. Younger guys are generally healthier. You hope at least. And that just seems to be a point of emphasis in this year's free agent class is getting that average age down a little bit while still maintaining talent, of course.
Yeah.
Think about, sorry, that you think about what you just said there too. The younger guys are hungrier, right? Why? Because they're trying to get to that second contract or trying to earn that second contract and earn more. And I think that's one of the stale, that's part of the point being stale and, competition, I just love it.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
All these guys are guys who are looking for that big payday and haven't really gotten it yet. I mean, May's got a decent contract, but the rest of these guys are signing for pretty bargain basement prices. So they're looking to play well here in Detroit, where maybe the attention is going to be a little bit more on them with the Lions being playoff contenders and all that, and then hopefully parlay that into a bigger contract down the road, whether it's with Detroit or with somebody else.
Yeah. And you said, some of these guys also, there is a salary cap. And so that comes into effect. And, in some ways, you guys know, I'm going to use the baseball analogy, the Detroit Tigers, right? You remember the '06 squad that rose up with Maglio Ordonez and Pudge and Inge and Granderson and a rather young Justin Verlander, right? Well, 5 to 6 years later, you had some similar faces, but then you had some other guys that were, some key pieces who were getting close to retirement or leaving, or some who even got traded away. And then you had new guys like Miguel Cabrera brought in. And I get it. It's baseball, no salary cap, right? And those rosters, they don't seem to turn over as quick because, James, the career for a baseball player, the way it takes a toll on a body, baseball careers typically last a little bit longer than football careers. So it's not the same. But my point is this: while many familiar parts of the Lions are changing, they're not all changing. There's an adjustment of pieces, but it doesn't mean their shot is gone. I think that's what a lot of people are worried about also, Coach, is you brought it up. They went 9-8 last year, and people are like, oh, well, now, Decker's gone and Glasgow's gone and Monty's gone. And there's a number of other guys that are gone who were very good contributors to the Lions' success, but they ran it back 2 years in a row, 12-5. They ran it back at 15-2. They ran it back at 9-8. Injuries and some other things hit them, and then also some contracts came up. And so it also brought Campbell to say, we need more competition, because they knew some spots couldn't stay the same, Coach. And so looking at this, remembering what the Tigers did, they were quite successful for a number of years after that. It doesn't mean that the Lions aren't going to compete. Certain elements of it might be more difficult now, but they still have the potential, they still have the leadership, and they still have a heck of a lot of talented players on this team.
Oh, for sure. And a great coaching staff. That's the other thing too. Now it's the coaching staff is established now. Now they can get the pieces that they want to get in there. And I think, again, you look at it and you talk about it, and people what guys have left that I said earlier, set the standard for those to follow. Well, we set that. A few years back when we were 9-8, we were doing cartwheels. I think the three of us were in the streets doing cartwheels and high fiving each other because we were 9-8. And then
James
again,
James was at Lambeau Field,
yeah, that's
maybe
right. I'm sorry, James. Was
shirtless
that my
during that
fault?
game.
I
My
was
fault.
freezing.
Yeah, but and again, that point was, oh my God, we're here, and then bang, bang, and then we're back down to 9-8. And I go back to that. Let's go back to the how many guys we've lost. We've talked about this. Lions were always in the last 3 years one of the highest amounts of retaining their players. And so that I think has going to be thrown out the window for them from now on. I think they're going to, when things seem to deteriorate or start to go down to where things aren't carrying the torch to where they can stay the same, I think they're going to not trust their people as much as before. And I think and I hate to say that, but I think that's the competition, that's the competitiveness, and that's having, that group where I love my guys. I love my guys. This guy's going to be good. This guy's going to be good. This guy, oh boy, he's not good after 2 years, And so I think that's part of it. I think that's part of why they got rid of some of it. And I don't want to say got rid of some of these guys, but just didn't offer them the big contracts and said, go out and, make some more money. You deserve it. And they should thank the Lions because they're the one that raised that price for them on the free agent market.
Yeah, James, what gives you optimism? Even though a number of these well-known names are leaving the roster, that gives you optimism that the Lions are going to be able to compete in 2026 and beyond.
One of the things is that this is kind of a new thing for Lions fans because the Lions haven't had sustained success for a while. So this is what happens when you have sustained success. You can't keep everyone. You have to eventually play the salary cap game. You have to do the math and say, this is what we can afford to spend on you. And I'm sorry, if you can find something else better, go get it. But this is all we can afford to pay you. It's like how many players did the New England Patriots, the good players of the New England Patriots get rid of all the time when they were really good?
Yeah.
It's what winning teams have to do.
Yeah. And other teams will overpay some of those players to go to their rosters because they need them. And so, yeah, it sets it up. Well,
which is exactly what the Lions were doing 10 or 15 years ago.
No. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to the movements. All right. We're going to start with the one that's already we know about, and it's official now, and that matters because apparently some trades that have been agreed to don't always go through. But David Montgomery has officially been traded to Houston. So we know he is gone. Graham Glasgow was released, and Taylor Decker asked for his release and was granted it. So we've hit on these all a little bit, but let's go around. Any final thoughts on these movements? Coach, we'll start with you.
Well, I just kind of want to. Taylor Decker's a dog. We love the guy. I mean, he's one of those guys that just like with Monty again, But from my coaching standpoint, part of the rebuild, he was a major part of the rebuild. He was with the bad times. He was with the good times, and you don't. He's talking about retiring, and then he says, "I'm coming back." And then we also lost the guy last year at retirement late. And so management, and from a management standpoint, it's a red flag, and you get kind of nervous about that because you're not sure what's happening. From a locker room and a coaching standpoint, from my standpoint, Taylor Decker, and again, I know he's banged up. I'm not bad mouthing the guy at all. He is a warrior for us. But from a coaching standpoint, when a guy is missing 1 and 2 practices a week, even though he gets your veteran extra day off and stuff like that, I think it grows on the team. I think it becomes a problem in the locker room. People probably don't talk about it, but you think about it as one of the younger guys or one of the guys that are busting their tails, every day of practice, and Decker is sitting out 2 and 3 games, and Decker is or 2 and 3 practices and then playing in those games. Again, I'm not badmouth at one bit, but from a coaching standpoint and a locker room standpoint, it will and starts to grow on you. And when you're losing, it starts to really grow on you. If you're 15-2 and he's doing that, nobody cares. But when you're 9-8 and miss the playoffs, everybody cares. So again, I love Taylor Decker. I wish him well. I hope he signs up with somebody. But I wanted to give that point because a lot of people are
Yeah.
upset about it. But I just think that's one of the things they got to understand from a coaching standpoint. And Dan Campbell, I wonder how many practices he ever missed when he played. So, and
Well,
that's
you're
key.
right. And
Yeah,
Campbell said, or it was
yeah,
Holmes, one of the others said
yeah.
about Decker that regardless of what he was going to decide,
Mm-hmm.
they it wasn't going to change what they were going to do going forward as far as the
Mm-hmm.
need for that position.
Right.
And so the only unfortunate thing is it sounded like Decker was surprised that he was asked for whatever it was. It may have been a pay cut. Who knows what it was, but you would have thought that maybe a conversation would have already taken place about that. The only thing I want to add about David Montgomery is, you know, management and coaching staffs don't want a player who doesn't want to be there. At least this coaching staff does. And that's what I appreciate about them. When Matthew Stafford asked for a trade, they traded him. Some teams will take the other philosophy of you're under contract, you're staying here. This builds a better culture and it continues to build the reputation of Detroit's a place you want to go to because they'll do right by the players. And again, there's no 100%, there's no perfect situation, but as often as they can. And I'm not sure about this, but I think they looked for a spot where David Montgomery could be a starter. And that's what he's going to be in Houston. And so he wanted out. The Lions wanted to keep him. They did right by him. And in the process, as much as I hate to see Monty go, because I absolutely love him and I think he is highly underrated, it makes sense for the team puzzle to go and get the draft picks and bring in a backup at a lower price and give a little bit more to Gibbs.
Yep.
So, James, any thoughts on these guys before we move on to the new stuff?
Yeah, I think the thing with Decker, I think it's pretty much a given that they asked him to take some kind of pay cut or alter
Yeah.
his contract in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that could be because the Lions might have just 100% thought he was retiring and just banked on having that money into the cap. And then when he
Yeah.
suddenly says, I'm not retiring," they're like, "Oh, well, now we have an extra or $14 million less that we were hoping we would have under the salary cap." So I think they were maybe trying to massage those numbers and like say, "Hey, we'll gladly take you for another year, but it's got to be at this number."
Right.
And stuff. So, and with Decker and Graham, I mean, they played great for a long time. They battled through both of them battled through injuries, did whatever was asked of them. Glasgow moved from position to position, played positions that he wasn't the best at to do the best for the team and everything like that. But last season, they were the two weak links on that offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Of the five,
Yeah.
I would say that those were the two weakest spots because, Decker was playing with a bad shoulder, Glasgow was playing injured, and, now they have an opportunity to upgrade at those spots, hopefully. I think Mays is an upgrade over Glasgow, and they hopefully take somebody high in the draft, I think, to get somebody in there at one of the tackle spots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and I felt bad for Glasgow because he signed a contract as a right guard and then he got moved
Yeah.
around. And you know what though? He gave you everything he had and appreciate everything for that. So
Yeah, he barely played right guard the last 2 years. It was
Set the standard.
it was all left guard and center.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Set the standards. They did.
Okay, some Detroit Lions free agents have signed in some different places. So let's start with Amik Robertson, a 2-year, $16 million contract, 9.3 guaranteed. He signs with Washington. And that's a guy who got a pay raise. The Lions signed him, and then he got a pay raise to leave the Lions. That's a guy that I was hoping the Lions would bring back the most on defense, I think. I think that one hurts the most, James. What are your thoughts on Amik and going to Washington?
Yeah, it's actually not that much. I guess the Spot Track didn't think he was going to get that much money, but it's not far off from what I thought he would kind of get, and it's not much more than what he pretty much about the same as what he was getting with the Lions when he signed with the Lions originally. I think it was 2 years and 14 or 16, something like that. So it's pretty close. And he was for a year and a half, man, he was great, and then he just kind of got dinged up last year in the second half of the year. All kind of like Glasgow was playing out of position. They were playing him in the outside because they had to, because of injuries, instead of in the slot, and he struggled.
Mhm. Yep, yep. Then Anzalone, Tampa, another pay raise, right, guys? And he's from
Mhm.
Tampa. His house is in Tampa, his family's in Tampa. Now he can sleep in his own bed, and not of whatever his condo and stuff. And the same thing with Lopez. I saw a thing on Lopez. He's a huge family man, and I guess his dad and his uncle, they were always at games in Arizona. He's always with them and talking to them and being away. And again, more money, 2 years. I don't. And again, we can go back and forth. Lions may have been just offering 1 year for these guys. Maybe they're just saying 1 more year, 1 more year, 1 year. So, I don't, again, more money going back to family. Lions did right by him.
Yeah, the Anzalone thing does not surprise me because
Mhm.
last year before training camp, he wanted an extension, and the Lions
Mhm.
didn't give him one. They gave him a little bit more money. And you knew he was going to get more money elsewhere because the Lions can't afford to pay three linebackers that kind of
No.
money. And
Mhm.
so we knew it was probably not going to happen. Uh, Anzalone got a nice paycheck here. Remember
Mhm.
when the Lions signed him to a deal and everybody thought they way overpaid Anzalone and he continued to grow and ascend? And he is another example like Amik Robertson, someone who came to the Lions, got a contract, played out their contract, and then got a pay raise after leaving the Lions. And like you said, Coach, Anzalone, Tampa guy, that's great fit for him. And Lopez, very great season in Detroit. He's going back to Arizona. He says he's a big family man, lives there. So I would have liked to have Lopez back in a rotational role, but those make sense.
Mhm.
James, anything you want to add about either of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to replace Anzalone. They don't have anybody else
Mhm.
in the linebacker core that does what Anzalone does. That's a cover linebacker like that. They've got some pretty good linebackers on the roster, but nobody that duplicates what he does. So that could be something they're still going to look for in free agency or in the draft, or maybe they're just going to do something different defensively this year. And with Lopez, I'm going to assume with both of those guys that the Lions probably offered him 1 year deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar money, but just 1 year. I could see a world in which the Lions were like, okay, well, if Levi comes back and plays well this year, he's going to be our guy, and we'll extend him because he's an in-house guy,
Right.
you know. So, uh, so Lopez may have thought he's the odd man out. I mean, and they've also got the DJ Reader option too.
Mhm.
I think they could get DJ Reader for pretty close to what Lopez signed with Arizona for, hopefully. Both of these guys played very well last year, though, and are going to be guys that they're going to have to find some legit players to replace.
Mhm.
They will. And if you think about it, you've got Aleem McNeil, you've got Tyleek Williams,
Mhm.
and you've got Levi Onwuzurike. And if Levi is healthy, Levi's your number three defensive tackle. You've got a quality three rotation. You can't overpay for the four spot. And so,
Yeah,
And
yeah,
as the
and
true.
puzzle
Wingo
goes.
and
True.
Wingo.
Yeah, and
I'm
and
I'm
Wingo is your
I'm gonna
fourth.
stick. I'm gonna
And
stick with him.
yep, I think Wingo can be a good rotational defensive
Mhm.
tackle for quite a while in the NFL. I think Aleem will be better a year off of the injury. Tyleek will be better with a year of experience under his
Mhm.
belt. So I think that that position group as a whole, if Levi is healthy and what he used to be,
Yeah.
looks pretty decent.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump over to wide receiver. The Lions had one notable wide receiver, Khalif Raymond, and he is departing. He's going to Chicago, a 1 year, $5.1 million deal. Coach, give me your initial takes on this one.
It's another one of those locker guys, one of those guys that just do everything for you. You saw what Saint said, his locker buddy that came in together. That means it's hard. That's a hard thing when those guys leave. But again, he's getting up there in age. His return yards, I think it was his lowest in his career. He made some splash plays, and he's one of those guys. And we drafted guys last year for that. I think like Levitt, and maybe we get somebody in the draft, that can do the return guys. And how many reps? And we have TK. TK was probably one of our best returners last year, and he just keeps hanging around. And then of course we got Isaac, taking over that spot. So, it's probably probably offered him as low as possible. And of course, that the Indiana Bears, wanted to have another part of the Lions in their locker room. So
Yeah,
I
the
did say that.
ascension of Tesla. I mean, that's going to be a big part of it. They drafted him last year. And again, $5 million. You
Yeah.
need that money elsewhere on this roster at this point. You have St. Brown, you have JMO, you have Tesla. You also have a great tight end, Laporta, plus you've got Jahmyr Gibbs. You need that $5 million to put into your offensive line or your defensive line versus your number 4 wide receiver. They've drafted guys to try and do the return game. As you pointed out, Tom Kennedy was our best kick returner last year. And so it hurts. You hate to see him go, but it makes sense that it doesn't fit in the puzzle at this point, James.
Yeah, and I think they were trying to prepare for this last year when they drafted Dominic Lovett because he's kind of the same type of player as Khalif Raymond. I'm very much younger and never really worked his way into the lineup last year because Raymond was still in there. So maybe this year, maybe Lovett takes that job. Maybe it's somebody else. You never know. But yeah, 5.1 for a fourth string at best wide receiver is quite a bit of money. So. I'm not surprised that the Lions weren't able to match that.
All right. Well, 3 more guys have switched. Tyrus Wheat to the Cowboys, 1 year, 1.7 million. Kyle Allen left, backup quarterback, going to the Bills to back up Josh Allen, 2 years, 4.1 million. And then Josh Pascal was released. If you listen to anything from the combine, when they asked about Pascal and Levi Onwuzurike, the Pascal response or answer, it was either by Campbell or Holmes, it may have been by Holmes, was a little wishy-washy, like there's something we need to look into there yet. So the Pascal release does not shock me. If they were releasing Levi right now, that would surprise me. But the Pascal one does not. I do wish Pascal the best with everything. Kyle Allen, that one hurt a little bit for me because I thought he was a very quality, solid backup. Fortunately, that hurt only lasts for 24 to 36 hours. We'll get to that. But Kyle Allen was like, okay, he's a backup that if he comes in, he's better than anybody we've had since, yeah, I don't know.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Since Teddy Bridgewater. There you go, coach. What do you got on these 3 guys?
Yeah, the same thing. We leaving, going back to Cowboys. He came from the Cowboys too, I believe, right? And I mean, I can't believe the money was, well, it's probably making 500,000 more dollars there. So, it's a lot of money when you're not one of the elites. And, Kyle Allen going with his buddy, him and Josh, weren't they roommates or friends or something like that? Is that what you said?
Yeah, they're really good buddies.
They're really good buddies. So
There you go.
that's cool. They can hang out together, and Josh can give him some, Josh signed that big contract. And then Pascal's the one I'm bummed out about because, I just loved him when he came out of Kentucky, the 3-time.
Yeah.
But he just couldn't stay healthy, and he had that the cancer thing, right? He had that, and so I'm wishing for him for better health and that he gets locked down with someone else if that's happened, because I think there's more to this than we really know.
All right, James, what do you have on these guys?
Yeah. Kyle Allen and Josh Allen are really good buddies. I think it's funny that you got Allen backing up Allen too.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like the Bills are gonna like sneak one into the game because there's nothing that Josh Allen can't do that Kyle Allen can. Uh, yeah, Mitch Trubisky left them for the Titans, so they needed a backup quarterback, and Kyle Allen had a chance to go back up his good buddy. So that doesn't surprise me. I'm a bit so. And then the Lions replaced him with Teddy Bridgewater. So I think it's pretty much a wash. You've got a nice, good veteran backup quarterback who probably isn't costing a whole lot of money in there. So
All right. Well,
good
just
news
keep
for
in
him.
mind, folks, again, most of these players leaving the Lions got a pay raise, right? A better contract than when they came to Detroit. So I want to point that out. That means Brad Holmes, not just drafting, but bringing in some free agents, has brought in some guys who have panned out. Now, there's guys that haven't fully see that as well. But they have been able to identify some talent, get them to ascend while they're in Detroit, be some key contributors. Some of them sticking around. Some of them, unfortunately, are moving on.
Mhm.
I guess the one guy that's sticking around that they brought in was Rock Ya-Sin. And that's a guy we've talked about for a few years on this show because he had a hard time sticking around with the same team, but he's getting a 1 year, $4 million deal. It'll be a second year in a row with the Lions. James, we were excited because it brought some depth, but then once we saw his play in the preseason, we got even more excited. This was crucial after losing Amik Robertson. They needed to get Rock back. They still have more work to do, but this at least makes you feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, it gets you a nice veteran piece, and that worked as one of those bargain basement free agents from last year that worked out, and they re-signed him, gave him a raise, brought him back. I'm gonna I'm gonna guess they maybe do the same thing with Avonte Maddox, hopefully here in the next couple weeks. And the other thing about those guys that they lost is Anzalone, Lopez, Khalif, and Amik all got contracts big enough that they'll qualify for the compensatory pick equation. The only guy the
Nice.
Lions have signed so far that has a big enough contract to qualify for that is Mays. So the Lions will probably get a comp pick or two out of this. They probably won't be high, but they
Yeah.
could get like a sixth and a seventh or a fifth and a sixth or or something like that out of this in what's supposed to be, who knows if it's going to be, but what's supposed to be a much better draft next year.
Yeah, that's what the rumors are circulating is that next year's draft is a little bit more stocked. Coach Rock Ya-Sin seems like your kind of player.
Freaking and the Lions, the dude will put a pad on you, man. He does not care. You guys, we saw that in preseason. We saw that in the games he got into. He'll come down. I'm wondering, is he going to become that nickel? Is he going to take a Meek spot? Because he'll rock the box and again, I think he's that one that can play all over the place for us. I feel like you said earlier, how many teams has he been through and not been able to stay with? And I think Lions fell in love with him, and he fell in love with Detroit. So that was a huge, huge sign. And for $4 million, it was a steal. I mean, it's huge for us.
Well, you talked about falling in love. Let's talk about the guy everybody fell in love with the day he walked in the door on Hard Knocks, Malcolm Rodriguez, aka Rodrigo. He never had that nickname in his life until he came to Detroit, and he's coming back in a 1 year deal. We already talked about Anzalone's departure. The Lions are a little thin at linebacker right now. They have some work to do. We know, in addition to be a depth piece in the linebacking room, he's a key core special teams player. Coach, we love this signing too.
No, heck yeah. And he played himself into starting as a rookie, right? I mean,
He
that's what
did.
Shep, we all talk about when Shep was like, why is this rookie starting over you guys? And, he's coming back off an injury that he never again, we talked about, oh my God. Anyways,
McNeil?
our D tackle. Thank you.
McNeil.
Yeah, McNeil. And coming back when they did come back and to do what they did in that situation, it's tenfold. After they get a year off and now they get to do OTAs and stuff. So that's a huge, huge, huge sign for us. It's a huge backup for us. Maybe he's going to be a starter. He's definitely going to be a package guy. He came in last year and played well for coming off injury report.
James, what do you got on Rodrigo?
And he's your starting fullback.
Oh yeah, I still remember that Baltimore game when he was. I'm like, wait, that's Rodrigo. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Mm-hmm. The Patriots signed a free fullback in free agency this year.
Yep.
I think the fullback is making a little bit of a comeback.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the guy who made a comeback with the Lions, or is making one. Is Teddy Bridgewater. Was with the Lions, left football, coached football, and then came out of retirement a couple times. And now the Lions are signing him to a 1 year deal. I love this move because I was really wondering what we were going to do with Kyle Allen leaving and what was going to be the right fit. I know Teddy Bridgewater is 33. You brought that up, James. He's got tons of starting experience. He's played in some big games before, and I like we already know how great of a teacher he is and how much of an influence, positive influence he can have on breaking down film, coaching up a younger quarterback if the Lions bring one in as a third stringer to work with them. But also, again, it tells me that this should be a no-brainer thing, right? Of course, every coach, every GM, every team is in it to win. But it tells you that the Lions are like they're putting their actions to back up the words. And that is, should something happen to Jared Goff, you do have a quarterback who knows how to play quarterback, which for Lions fans, many decades of this team, you did not have a backup quarterback who knew how to play quarterback very well. So, again, we don't think that's going to happen. We don't want that to happen. But you have to have some sort of a plan in there. And again, I get it. When you have a top 5, top 10 quarterback, if something happens, everything goes out the window and everything changes. But the game day preparation is huge. That's why we kept some of the quarterbacks we had, was to just help Goff prepare for film, coach. Teddy has so much experience. He knows the system. He's the perfect fit for this year.
Oh, and you even said it. He's a locker room guy. Everybody loves him. I mean, and JMO. I mean, look what he did with JMO.
Yeah.
People, I don't know if people remember that, but he was, and again, they're going to draft a quarterback. We know that. They have to. They're going to, they know they have to. They tried it a few years back, and what better teacher than a guy that already, plus, as a guy that played and then he went and coached as an actual coach, that carries over. I don't care what level you're coaching at, you still understand people and how to instruct. So I think that's just a great hire for us. And we don't, long as if he ever plays in a game, which we hope he doesn't, I want him in the number 50.
James, what do you got on Teddy here?
Yeah, he's just a solid vet, which is exactly what you want as a quarterback. Like you said, plenty of experience playing, knows exactly what he's doing. His foray into coaching adds another little layer to the onion with him. It's just a pretty perfect addition for there. And he's somebody who you can see doing a Dan Skipper and coaching on a team in a year or two right after he retires too. So, if they lose Mark Brunell or somebody, maybe you've got the replacement coach in-house already.
And coach, you talked about how much great work he did with JMO. But what about the other receivers down the depth chart on the roster and maybe some of the guys on the practice squad? He could work with them as well. There are a lot of intangibles to Teddy Bridgewater joining this team for the next year, and he'll be there for all of training camp. I love this move.
Yep.
Okay, well, now I guess we should talk about finally the new guys joining the team. All right. The one who's got the most household name is Isaiah Pacheco, running back, Kansas City Chiefs. 1-year deal, $1.8 million. Had a pretty significant injury, I believe a broken leg about a year and a half ago, season and a half ago. And Kansas City didn't need him as much because they signed Kenneth Walker. I like the move because I said this, and I think we all agreed on this. Some people questioned it, but they're like, well, you got Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm like, yes, but I want another veteran on the roster. And Pacheco checks that box, James.
Yeah, I think so. I'm absolutely flabbergasted
Pacheco,
by the number
sorry.
of Lions fans who don't think this is a good signing. I mean, if you watched what he did in Kansas City, Kansas City did not have a very good run blocking offensive line. They're a very good pass blocking line, but they're not great at run blocking. And he still averaged, I think, 4.4 yards a carry for his career in Kansas City. Despite that, the guy's fast. He's big. He's a bruiser. He loves contact. He's going to be what Jamal Williams and Montgomery were. He's going to be that guy that on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1 you can give the ball to, and you're going to get that first down the majority of the time. The only place that I see him as being significantly different than Montgomery is that he's not much of a receiver, but the Lions never really used that much out of Montgomery anyway.
Yeah. Coach, what do you got on this?
Well, I had him on my fantasy team for 2 years, so that tells you how I like him. He's a running back that wants to put his face mask on your chest plate. I'm just telling you, right? Everybody knows it. And the other thing is, he is destroying the ground with his feet when he's running. Those feet are moving 1,000 miles an hour, and when he gets tackled, he's doing the exact same thing to get back to the huddle. Those are things you watch in a guy like that. James already alluded to his pass protection. Again, wants to put his face mask on your chest plate. He's won 2 rings, right? He's won 2 rings. So there's another intangible in the locker room. What they had to do, how they got there, and what he had, and what his responsibility was to and how he helped out the team winning that. It's just a great fit. He's one of the guys I think we had talked about, back when we had that list together, and I kept looking at it going, I'd like to have him. I hope we get him because he's just that type of guy. And can I throw some numbers out at you guys?
Yeah, please.
1,066 yards, 17 touchdowns. You guys remember that?
What about that?
Mhm.
That was Jamal Williams's
Yeah.
carrot yards and the touchdowns he had in the 2022 season, right? And we finished 9-8, and we couldn't come to a agreement with a contract with them, so he walked. And each and every one of us was like, "What are we doing?" And we brought some guy named Monty in. And after that 9-8 season, we lost the running back, and then we went to the playoffs. Man, it sounds weird. After 9-8 season, we lost one of our running backs, and we brought another one in. This guy's going to be, everybody's going to fall in love with him after about 2, 3 games. The football people know what we got. The clickbaiters have no clue.
So you're hoping history repeats itself.
History's going to repeat itself.
All right. Well,
1-0.
I will say this. I think Isaiah Pacheco is kind of in between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery as far as
Mhm.
size goes.
Mhm.
And then looking at Jamal Williams, he was 6 feet 224.
Mhm.
So he's similar to Jamal Williams, maybe a tad shorter, but maybe about the same strength. So he fits that mold though, which is short yardage, up the middle, hard hitting, Jamal Williams style, really.
Mhm.
And I saw a stat that was like 8 for 8 on third and short or fourth and short this past season. So I'm good with this. This is exactly what I wanted. Is he the same guy before the leg injury? Maybe not, but is he exactly what the Lions need? We're not looking for 1A, 1B. We're looking for running back one and then somebody competing to be the lead running back two. And that's him. He's the lead running back two. And there might be some competition because the Lions are talking about bringing competition in, but this guy is solid and he's a veteran. And you said he's got 2 rings, coach. So he's got experience of winning and he knows what it takes. So I think it's the right fit.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let's talk about the offensive line. The Lions brought in Juice Scruggs as part of the trade with David Montgomery. He is a depth guy, part of that trade. But the big money that the Lions have spent so far is on the center, Cade Mays. The Panthers, 3-year, $25 million contract with $14 million guaranteed. James, start with you. What do you know about Cade Mays? And then I got to tell you, Coach reminded us that he's been on his radar, and I had forgotten. But you give us what you got.
Well, I mean, basically, with most people, he was the third best free agent center on the market. And
Okay.
Linderbaum went off for $27 million a season, which the Lions were never going to get close to that number. And McGovern re-signed with his team for a pretty penny too. So they essentially got the best guy on the market at the time. They got him under value because I think Spot Track had him valued at getting 12 million a season in this
Wow.
year's off season, and the Lions got him for 8. Um, and I think that I think he's a better fit for Detroit's scheme than what Carolina ran. Uh, just what Carolina ran, I don't think jived with what his strengths were. He is. I'm not gonna say he's Frank Ragnow, but he plays like Frank Ragnow in that he likes to get off his guy and get to the second level and create those creases, and those are the plays that the Lions loved with Ben Johnson and getting Gibbs those big gains up the middle where Frank Ragnow got his hands on a linebacker. And that's what he does. He climbs to the second level and he creates those lanes. The Lions did not have that last year with the guys that they had playing center. So I think it's a very good signing for the Lions. It gives them a much younger center, somebody who's going to be at a minimum an upgrade from what they had, and an above average starter, I think, in the NFL, and a perfect fit for what they needed. He's the dude's a mauler too. People are gonna like him.
Well, that's encouraging to hear because he doesn't have tons of starting experience, James. And so, coach, but we saw him play his way into that due to an injury to a teammate. And then he seemed to, if I'm not mistaken, he never relinquished.
No, no. So it's funny because I was talking, and this was back on February 25th, and I went back to check
Receipts.
my receipts. I went to check my receipts. I was talking to my nephew Sean because he's a big Lions fan. And what are we going to do at center? Oh my God, can we get Lindenbaum? Can we get McGovern? I'm like, yeah, we're going to touch those guys. I said they're going to be too high, and I said, but we're going to find somebody. So I started researching him, and that was May 25th. And then from watching film and then reading, I'm going, man. He's okay. Yeah, he's got need work. Oh man, he looks good. Then I found out that he only played 12 games at center in the NFL.
Right.
Okay, I believe he only played 12 games at center. He played. So I researched it some more. He played 5 positions in college. He played all 5 positions in college. He was projected college draft, I believe, as a left tackle. May have been right tackle. It was one of the tackle spots. And then they found out they can move him around to guard and center. And so then I went back and watched film again after thinking about those things, and I'm going, man, I like this guy a ton. And I just think he's young. He signed a decent 3-year contract because he knows his second that next contract is going to be a big one because I think he is gonna prosper in our system with Hank working with him. What he likes to do, James said he's a mauler. You could see it. He wants to inflict pain on people when he gets a hold of them. He loves to bury people, and I think and his intelligence have to be off the charts, guys. If he can play 5 positions in college, and
Yeah.
then 2 or 3. I had Darren Keaton who played for me that played 3 years for the Lions. He played center in both guard positions, and he was so intelligent, and to be able to put in 2 tackle spots in that. So as you can tell, I'm really excited with this one. The only thing I don't like is I really wanted the Bills center. Did you guys see the pizzas that dude makes? Oh my God, he makes these huge. You should see these pizzas. He has the
Yeah,
whole
I
team
know.
over. Did you see that story? Everything
Yeah.
I see is him talking about pizzas, and I'm like, God, he would have been great here but Detroit dish. He doesn't like them Detroit pizza style, so he's good where he stayed. But anyways, no, just very happy we got this guy.
Well, and
And
I
Juice,
like it.
go
I
ahead.
like it because it takes care of 2 positions because that means
Yep,
Tate Ratledge is staying at right guard.
yep,
And
yep.
so you're not moving right guard to have him learn center and then bring in a right guard. Like, okay, you know who your center is, you know who your right guard is, you know who one of your tackles are or is, right? So that's a good thing. And that whether if Panay stays on the right side, you got a very strong force right there. You know you don't have to draft a center early. You do have another guy in house who can compete for the backup position. And so it takes one need, an important need off the board. It allows you to focus on the other area, which is going to be the other tackle position. Now, the Lions did sign an offensive tackle, Larry Borum from Miami. James, he's not the Taylor Decker replacement, but he might be the guy that's going to be your tackle 3 and run some of the stuff that Skipper ran. What do you got on Larry Borum?
Yeah, he's more your Dan Skipper replacement. He's a swing tackle who can play both tackle spots. He's played a few snaps in the NFL at right and left guard as well over his 5 years. So he's filled in, kind of all over. But I mean, mostly he's played right tackle. He's got over 1,700 snaps of experience in the NFL at right tackle, almost 800 at left tackle. Um, uh, and by a lot of metrics, last year was his best year in the league. Also, the second half, especially, he really graded out pretty highly. Especially, I think he was like 13 spots ahead of Taylor Decker in the
Really?
in the tackle rankings this year.
Wow.
So he's a good pass blocker, but not rated highly by PFF as a run blocker. He's only 26. The Lions saw him in the joint practices. I don't know if you remember during the joint practices, my line
Yeah.
of that poor right tackle that Aiden Hutchinson abused.
That was
That was
him?
Larry Borum.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, that doesn't give Lions fans
but
encouragement.
but
Well,
Aiden
he doesn't have
Hutchinson
to
does
go
that.
against Hutch now.
But Aiden
There you
Hutchinson
go.
has that to pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And he also got a lot better throughout the season.
Mhm.
So he played right tackle for the Dolphins, which is essentially left tackle for most teams because they had a left-handed quarterback. So he did kind of play. He played their blind side.
Mhm.
He was rated as the 35th best tackle in the NFL last year. So
Wow.
between all right and left tackles. So the sixth lowest pressure rate among all right tackles in the league at only 3.7%, just a little bit below Penny Sewell.
Mhm.
So his numbers look good, and he looks like a guy who's improved. I know Bears fans because he played for several years for the Bears and was not very good for them. And when we signed him, I saw a lot of Bears fans mocking the signing but it appears everything that a lot of things clicked with him last year in Miami.
Well, let's hope because there have been some stories of guys like Gosder Cherilus who has stuck around in the NFL for a long time,
Mhm.
or Kyle Van Noy,
Mhm.
who leave the team and then do get better. The Lions, I think, looked at him at the Senior Bowl too. I think Hank Fraley was there. I think I saw that on social
He
media,
was with
Coach.
Cade.
Who?
Hank had Cade in the Senior Bowl, I think.
That's who it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that was another thing. That was another
yeah,
one when that's a good pick because you're
yeah.
actually
So yeah,
starting.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I see him just as a versatile backup who can play multiple positions, mostly tackle, play guard in a pinch. And if you draft somebody high at right tackle and move Panay over to left, or draft a left tackle or whatever, he can start for you in a pinch until the kid's ready or something.
yeah, and we still have to see who the other guys on our roster that are going to
Mhm.
ascend if someone's going to step up. But
Mhm.
it's a depth guy at minimum that brings in competition and might be your number three guy. Coach, anything to add about this guy and the acquisition by the Lions?
No, just again, watch a little bit of film on him and just to get a feel and like like James said, he got better as it went on. Um, the pocket presence, now you got a quarterback that's just in the pocket. We're not moving out a little bit and stuff like that. He's been in that system with all the motions and things like that. So that's all good. So I think that's a positive. I think him and Juice are both great additions for us. It made our offense line better. It's our offense line is better right now without a starting left tackle or right tackle, but I still think our depth and what we have coming back, with Frazier and those guys. I mean, it's gonna be fun to watch. Competition is gonna be tenfold. Gonna be some good practices to go watch.
Yeah.
That there will
And
be.
Borum also looked a lot more mobile with the
Yes,
Dolphins than he did with the Bears.
I thought so too.
And in the video that I watched of him with the
Mhm.
Dolphins, he was one of those guys like Jerry likes. He's
Yeah,
always looking for work.
yeah,
He
yeah,
he's looking for somebody else to hit if there's nobody in front of him.
yeah.
All right. Well, he found some work with the Lions, so that's
Yes,
good for
sir.
us.
Lunch pail.
All right. Well, it's just the end of day one of the official start of free agency. It doesn't mean if you didn't make a signing in the first, day that your team's not going to make any more. We
Oh,
know the Lions will probably make more throughout the week and some next week. The work isn't done. I expect multiple signings in the coming days. Coach, where do the Lions sit right now?
I think they sit great. I think they attack the need. We talked about the free agency. What were they going to go after would start to determine what they're going to draft. And by getting the center, like we did, and the ones that we have excuse me, on the roster. I think that helped. We got the backup pieces in there to help push. Backup pieces with some experience, and we got, and again, we still got Frazier. I'm going to keep bringing him up because, he played a little bit last year, but we brought him in we drafted him for a reason. And now you have more experience to help the younger guys because Mahogany and Rat are, they're still pups too and these guys got some more, even though Rad had a pretty good year last year. So really looking good. Excited about where we're heading.
All right. James, where do you see the Lions sitting right now?
The biggest hole that everybody was talking about, aside from everybody wanting them to trade for every all-pro defensive end under the sun, was the offensive line, and they've gone out and addressed that. They've gotten two valuable backup pieces and a starting center.
Mhm.
So they've positioned themselves to in a strong tackle class be able to get a tackle in the first two rounds. So everything hopefully looks good there. I mean, you got the draft is going to kind of augment this free agent class pretty well, you hope.
Mhm.
But the free agency's not done either. They're going to bring in more pieces, and they always do. Last year, they brought in a bunch of guys late that ended up being contributors. You know,
Yeah.
Rock Ya-Sin, Avante
Maddox.
Maddox, those were all late signings.
Mhm.
So they he's been Holmes has had a pretty good track record of finding these thrift store bargain contracts later in free agency and having them pay off.
Yeah, and I think the Lions, I mean, it's not a mistake that three of their signings are offensive linemen or a trade in two signings. The offensive line's got to be strong as it can be. It's their bread and butter. Dan Campbell wants to run the ball and control the clock. You keep the other team off the field most of the time, they can't score, right? And so that I think they saw that as the number one area to build up. They're not done building there. There's more work to go, but they've already put some resources in there, and so that is encouraging. Detroit is still a desirable place to come and play. Keep that in mind. You will see players who don't get the contract offers they want consider coming to the Lions for a 1-year deal, maybe for a little bit less money to try and make an impact to then get that next contract. Still want to see that obviously they need to sign a defensive end. Cam Jordan would be the prototypical free agent out there. Still expect them. No, coach, you're not liking that move.
No, stop. I didn't want to talk about it till he gets
All right,
here.
yep, you're right. You're right. Okay, my bad. There are plenty of
What the
defensive ends
heck?
out there. The Lions will likely find at least one. If I say the name, they won't come to the team, right,
Yeah,
coach?
just we're just
So
hoping
so
for. Yeah.
so odds are they will not re-sign Marcus Davenport, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so we're playing that one. I expect them to do something in the draft, and so there's work to be done on defense. I'm still holding out hope they bring a free agent tight end in. They might not. They might choose to draft one. You can get a quality tight end as late as the fourth or fifth round. So keep that open as well. James, any other thoughts on the Lions before we move to movements around the NFL?
Yeah, I think you'll see a tight end in free agency be added. They weren't going to go out and spend the money to get like a K Dotton or any of those big names or a David Njoku at tight end because, and you weren't going to get those guys to come here with potentially it being a third string tight end job.
Very likely, yeah.
If Wright and Laporta are healthy, you could be buried at third. But there's guys out there. There's guys with connections to coaches on staff. And there's plenty of free agents at tight end this year. So they'll bring in a reasonably priced veteran to be that third tight end this year, and then possibly even draft somebody in later in the draft. I mean, the Lions have 9 picks in the draft this year.
Yeah, we've because of trades in that comp pick, we have loaded up with extra draft picks now. All right, there's been some, moves around the NFL, not just the Lions. Kenneth Walker going to Kansas City. Max Crosby trade to Baltimore. Wait, hold on, not so fast. Ravens back out. They signed Trey Henderson to the Ravens. Yes. Tyler Linderbaum is gone. He's gone to the Raiders. Mike Evans going to San Francisco. Bradley Chubb to the Bills. Javon Hargrave to Green Bay. There's some other ones out there that I haven't mentioned. Any of these or ones I haven't mentioned, James, start with you, jumps out most to you?
Well, I mean, it seems like most of the teams in the division are losing a lot of free agents, just like the Lions. Romeo Dobbs, another one of those guys who left the Packers and went to the Patriots, got a pretty big contract. A bunch of players have left the Vikings and the Bears. The Vikings have had to release a couple guys just to get into the cap, just to get compliant. So they're not going to be too active as far as in free agency for anybody who's not willing to come up for much more than a league minimum contract unless they do some moving around.
Yeah. I also forgot to mention DJ Moore to the Bills. I like DJ Moore. It's easier to root for him on the Bills than on the Bears. And so that's a big move for Buffalo to get another receiving option in there for Josh and Kyle Allen. Coach, what do you got on any of these big moves?
Yeah, it's fun to watch them to see how things jumping around because then as a just a straight fan, Lions fan, you look at it and go, oh my God, Well, they lost. You know, the Seahawks lost three of their starters, you know, from a Super Bowl team. And, you know, and again, the MVP of the Super Bowl, they let go, you know, they let
Yeah.
him walk. And so it's just the part it is. That's part of the business of the game. And you just got to get people to fill in. So, yeah, there's still a couple DNs that are out there that haven't signed yet, free agents. I can't even think of any of their names, but
We
you
don't
know,
want to.
we only have two DNs on our roster right now, and Haseen and Hutch. You know, the killer H's, and we need three holes there. So, but yeah, it's kind of cool. And again, some stuff will break. You know, the next couple days now that we got all these out, and Crosby, I think is I think we're going to get him. I think he's coming back to Detroit. Uh, Oh, I'm just kidding. So I think he's done moving. I hope so. I feel terrible for the guy, and I hope he gets healthy and tears it up for the Raiders.
Yeah, do the Raiders and Ravens play each other this year? I don't
I
know
looked
about
it
that.
up immediately. I looked it up. As soon as he went back. I looked. I'm going to that game. And
Yeah,
no, he does not play against them. But
maybe they'll
but
meet in the playoffs.
yeah, but
Uh,
Hendrickson
uh,
does play against. But Hendrickson does play against Burrow. Of course, they're in the league twice. So
oh yeah, yeah.
that'll be interesting. But
So
yeah, they do not play. I was unfortunately.
all right, James. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I mean, there's still good guys left in free agency. I think that the Lions, I think, will look at another defensive lineman that they could look at is Calais Campbell,
Oh yeah,
who's another guy that's still out there. He's old in the tooth, but he's still productive.
I think he's 50, isn't he?
He's 39. He's
Okay.
39 and still fast enough to play edge.
Yeah, he's
Uh, and man, if you brought him and I'm going to say Jam Corden,
yeah.
uh, so we're not saying his name.
Yeah.
Uh, that would be two nice guys who would fit perfect into the locker room and be able to just rotate those two guys in
Yeah.
at left defensive end. Perfect for the Aaron Glenn / Kelvin Shepherd defense.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice, Coach. How about you? Any final thoughts?
No, just looking forward to the next couple of days now that I think contracts are signed now, and there's probably nobody backing out.
There you go. And you know, I think the Lions are going to still bring some more guys back that they have
Yeah.
that have become free agents. They're out there to look, and I think some of those guys might ultimately decide Detroit's still the place they want to call home. So looking forward to the Lions bringing some new guys in yet, but also bringing back some familiar faces who could be key contributors for the 2026 season. Want to remind you guys about Detroit Lions Legends basketball. They're making their way around the state of Michigan right now, helping local communities raise money. Check them out. You can go to Wolverine Production Company or you can go to Herman Moore's Tackle Life Foundation website, and they've got the whole entire schedule there. They're traversing pretty much all of the Lower Peninsula at some point. So find out when they're coming to a town near you. Go check it out. Very family-friendly event. Thank you for tuning in, folks. Please tell your family and friends about the show. You can find us on social media like Twitter and Instagram. Check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.